Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to the December 16th of 2020, our last meeting for the Board of Trustees for the Utah Transit Authority in the year 2020. If there are members of the public who'd like to offer comment, we would just encourage you to register at the WebEx link and also indicate by raising your hand, and we'll call on you here in just a few minutes. We just before we begin, because of the nature of the current public health issues, we have a statement that allows us to stream this meeting live without an anchor location. Jenna, do you mind reading that statement?
Happy to. Thank you, Chair. This is the electronic board meeting determination statement. Consistent with provisions of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, as the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. Due to the ongoing threat of the COVID-19 pandemic and the persistence of community person-to-person virus transmission, conducting board and board committee meetings with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. Federal, state, and local health authorities have adopted guidelines which encourage institutions and individuals to limit in-person interactions and recommend increased virtual interactions. This written determination takes effect on December 16, 2020 and is effective until midnight on January 15, 2021 and may be reissued by future written determinations as deemed appropriate. Dated this 11th day of December 2020, Carlton J. Christensen.
Thank you, Jana. Our first item up is our Safety First Minute, and with that, we'll welcome Sheldon Shaw. Good morning, Sheldon.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, trustees. Appreciate the opportunity as always. The safety message that went out on Friday to our employees was about the importance of personal protective equipment. And I want to talk about that in the context of hierarchy of controls, because personal protective equipment is our last line of defense. If we have a hazard, the first thing we want to do is try to eliminate it. If we can't eliminate it, we want to substitute it and replace it with something else. If that doesn't work, we want to look to an engineering control where we isolate our workers from that hazard. And then we would move to an administrative control where we change the way our workers do their assigned task. And the last line of defense is personal protective equipment. So if we're relying on that as the last line of defense, we need to make sure we're wearing our personal protective equipment correctly and we're using it as intended. Appreciate the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you, Sheldon. I appreciate all the great work you do. I also failed to recognize my colleagues, Beth Holbrook and Jeff Acerson. Good morning to them. And that brings us to our next item, which is our consent agenda, which is approval of minutes from December the 9th. I'll entertain a motion to that end.
I apologize, my mute was not working this morning. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Let's see, Jeff, I think you're on mute as well.
Yeah, I can't, it's not, there we go. It unmuted for me. I tried to,
Okay.
I second that motion.
I'll have to figure out how to control your mutes going forward. So that sounds like very powerful. I have a motion by Beth, seconded by Jeff to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you for that. That then brings us to our agency report. And with that, we'll welcome Carolyn Gannott, our Executive Director. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning. We just have a few items today. One is, have about 4 little minor items. The first actually is not minor, which is the Human Trafficking Campaign. January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and UTA is joining other trans leaders across the country to help aware trafficking.
Carolyn, I'm sorry, I can't hear her very well. Oh, it looks like she's having some.
Oops.
Could you please start over?
Maybe,
Is it better now?
there you go. That's better.
Yes. For a second, I thought it was me because literally it was super quiet. But yeah, could you please start over? I apologize. I couldn't hear
Yeah,
much of what you started with. So thank you.
I know. I see that right now. I'm getting all these warning lights all over my.
Wondering if we should come back to Carolyn here in a minute.
Yeah. And Carolyn, you
Doesn't
could
look-
come and use my office if you need to. I don't know.
Well, I think I need to just, can you hear me now or is it going in and out?
Now it's fine.
Okay, we will see how this goes. Okay, I'll start over again. The first is our to touch base on human trafficking campaign. January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and UTA is joining other transportation leaders across the country to help raise awareness and prevent this heartbreaking issue. Oftentimes, trafficking victims do use public transportation to travel or through transport that way. We have partnered with the Utah Human Trafficking Prevention Coalition to share the Recognize, Report, Refer awareness campaign on more than 1,000 ad boards at station stops on trains and buses throughout our system. We will also be sharing this information on our social media channels. To prepare UTA employees for potential human trafficking situations they may encounter, we have put together a human trafficking prevention training program, which will probably roll out later next year. As we hone it in and determine how we do the training for the various employees. The next item is the North Temple Frontrunner seating. Actually, this is one of those locations that I went to like the first or second day I was here. I noticed that there wasn't a lot of seating and people were standing out in the sun waiting for trains for a very long time. If you've been there, and it's a fairly used station. So we recently did add additional seating at the North Temple Frontrunner platform to ensure our customers are comfortable while they wait for the train. And we originally had 16 seats and we were able to increase to 32 seats by utilizing the other side of the canopy. This was a collaborative effort between the customer experience team, the Frontrunner team, our 88 compliance officer, and the facilities team. We all worked together to add these additional canopies to the platform. Adding additional canopies to the Frontrunner system is on our long range project list, and I look forward to seeing this work continue. And I want to thank everybody who did work on this. The next item is mouthful here. It's mandatory directive expedience release function on Frontrunner. And to let you know, we recently installed, tested, and activated the nation's first, I'll say that again, so it's mandatory direct expedient release, or MDER, function at 4 grade crossings on Frontrunner North alignment. This function allows trains traveling through a grade crossing with a crossing protection in place to immediately upgrade their speed rather than waiting several thousand feet for the upgrade. And this will allow us to gain operational efficiencies and reduce delays on the Frontrunner. UTA is the first and only enhanced automatic train control railroad in the entire country to have this functionality. And the project was a result of a year's worth of design, risk analysis, working with FRA and getting their approval and final installation and testing. And I want to thank the systems engineering team, our contractors, designers, and the FRA, really working with them as partners for working together on this fantastic project, and our safety team. More crossings along the Frontrunner North and Frontrunner South alignment will be outfitted with this new feature beginning in January 2021. So this is a huge milestone for Frontrunner and some of the additional accommodations we could do once we had the positive train control system in. And then our last item is donating shelters to Intermountain Healthcare. Our facilities maintenance team recently arranged to donate 6 of our old bubble top shelters to the Intermountain Healthcare. They're planning to modify the shelters with heat to keep their employees warm while they're administering COVID-19 tests during the winter months. So they had called us and we donated 6 of those shelters through our donation program. So that's just an update on the agent's report this week. Is there any questions?
Just two comments on my, first of all, kudos on the shelter donation, and I think that's a great way for us to participate, and to those who are making that happen. And second, I remember that a few Sundays ago, we sort of tested that new system, and I won't even begin to do the acronym or the name of it without it before me, but that must mean the test went well, and that's exciting, bringing together that group of folks to make that happen. So congratulations to the team.
No.
Any other questions? So Beth, it looks like you have one.
Yes, Carolyn, thank you for your report today. I did have a question. I apologize on the human trafficking. When is that campaign starting? Could you let us know again?
Yeah, the awareness campaign will be in January. We've also had a pledge with APTA had asked people to, the various transit agencies, to pledge to have more awareness done and training of our employees. And then FTA last year, that was a huge initiative of theirs through the whole US DOT department, and FTA asked transit agencies as well. And we had a pledge to also support the awareness training. Utah has is very engaged in this. They did win a grant recently from the DOT regarding this, and we are continuing to work with them. And this first piece in January is mostly more just public relations and awareness of it, and then we'll be working with our officers. When I was at Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, we had a human trafficking training program. We were one of the first in the country to lead out on this, probably about 6 years ago. And we did have operators who were aware, one particularly who actually did recognize a victim of trafficking, and there were arrests made. And so it is very key to have that sort of awareness of a situation that someone may be in.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. And thanks. I'm glad that we are participating in this type of an effort. And I'm just appreciative of all of the efforts that all of staff has done. So thank you.
Any other questions for Carolyn? Carolyn, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
I just have to apologize, and I'll just step back one, and that is I skipped past public comments. And so do we have any public comment? Not hearing or seeing any.
We do not have any public on the line, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, my apologies for flipping past that one. Our next item up, which is item 6, we've just moved forward because of some constraints by our partners in Clearfield City, and wanted to accommodate their schedule, and certainly welcome them. This is in regards to the Clearfield TOD Master Development Agreement, and with that, certainly we welcome those officials from Clearfield City, but we'll start with Mary DiLoretto, our Chief Public Service Officer, as well as Paul Drake and Jordan Swain. Good morning, Mary.
Morning. So yes, today Paul and Jordan are going to be presenting the Clearfield Station TOD Master Development Agreement and Master Development Plan. And this is for discussion today, and they're going to go through the details for you. So I'm just going to turn it over to Paul and Jordan to do the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mary. So as mentioned, we're covering the Clearfield Station TOD Master Development Plan and Agreement. These were recently approved by the Clearfield City Council, and they'll ultimately need to be approved by the Board of Trustees. But as Mary said, we're just discussing it today, the terms and merits of the agreement, and then we'll bring a resolution back to the board at the next board meeting. We're joined, as mentioned, by Mayor Shepherd from Clearfield City, JJ Allen, the city manager, representatives from the development team, Nathan Ricks, Trevor Evans, and Ken Shields, and then UTA's TOD project manager, Jordan Swain, and our attorney, Tim Merrill. Before turning the time to Jordan, I want to point out a couple of things. This project is significant because for several reasons, but as you know, this is our first project that has gone through UTA's new TOD policy. So we believe that this is going to be a model, just judging by by the process and how well it's gone with the mayor, with the development team, with the city council. We believe that it is going to be a model for how communities, transit agencies, and the private sector can work together to implement these high quality centers around transit. The mayor and JJ, their team, the city council have just admirably guided this process. I'm getting starting to understand why his name is Shepherd, because this has been such a complicated situation. But he and his team have just done such an admirable job guiding the process and herding it to an end that we believe and they believe is going to be something that the community is going to be proud of. We also have just an outstanding development team that we know has the capacity and the skill to make that vision a reality. So we're thrilled to bring this to the board for your consideration, for your comments, for your questions. I also want to shout out to Jordan, who's done just a great job representing UTA during this whole process. And with that, I'll turn the time to him to discuss the agreement and the plan. Go ahead, Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for having us this morning. We understand that the agenda is packed, so we feel great being here, and we'll keep this as brief as possible. But certainly, we want to discuss any nuances and any details that you see appropriate. So please feel free to ask questions while we're presenting the various aspects of the Master Development Plan and Master Development Agreement. Can we move to the next slide? Okay, so I wanted to provide just a brief history of this site and of this project so that we can all understand what has gone into this, right? What, years and years of planning efforts and different iterations of design have gotten us where we are today. And to start with that, I'd like to discuss the station area plan, how the station area plan was really utilized to attract. Oh, and I'm sorry, if you can go back to that last slide. Thank you. How the station area plan was used to attract the most appropriate development partner, and then how with that partner and with the city of Clearfield, we were able to form a master plan working group to really get through the entitlement process as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. So now the next slide, please. Okay, so back in 2019, not too long ago, the Clearfield Connected Station Area Plan was completed. You can see an illustrative map that came from that plan on the right there. And you can see that, just by looking at that, the consultant who we had hired, which was IBI, a very reputable consultant, recommended that we maximize connectivity within the site and access points to State Street and surrounding streets. That we really focus on creating a destination at this site, some place where people can live, work, and play, and some place that's very attractive and really draws from the region. And then, of course, as it should, IBI recommended that we provide community assets and amenities and so forth, and then that we think about it as a complete community, not just a homogeneous residential development or an office park, but really a complete community that is mixed and vibrant. So that was the station area plan. Now, if we can move to the next slide, we'll see how our development partners responded to that station area plan. It's very, very similar, especially in the street network and in the infrastructural improvements that they're proposing here. And so we can see the value in having the station area plan in place. The development partners who we ultimately selected are Stack Development and Hamilton Partners. With Stack, it's Andrew Bybee, Nathan Ricks, and Trevor Evans, and with Hamilton Partners, Bruce Bingham and Ken Shields. It has been wonderful working with these folks. I don't think that we could have a better development team on this project, and they certainly understand the process that we're trying to carry out here, and have been very sensitive to Clearfield's concerns and priorities, and also to UTA's concerns and priorities. So I just want to mention that we have a great team here. We've formed a great team. And if we can go to the next slide now. We can see how the site starts to, it's beginning to be refined now. Once we formed the working group with Clearfield City, a lot of constraints and many opportunities were presented in conversations with that working group that allowed us to see how the site could begin to kind of be molded and refined. And I just wanted to mention that, so JJ and Mayor Shepherd are on the line, and they really were heading up that group. And we just appreciate that group so much. I think so many valuable conversations were had with that group, or have been had with that group. And we certainly wouldn't be where we are today without that group. So, and then the next slide, we can see that through that working group, we are at this final, very refined, very sophisticated plan and design, and this is what we want to be talking with you or describing today. So this is the final product that we'll be talking about. This is an illustrative plan from the final MDP, which was adopted by Clearfield City about 3 weeks ago now. So that's a history bringing us up to the present moment, what we're describing today. So let's jump into the MDP. Since we have some time constraints. And within the MDP, we're going to be talking about an overview of the plan, the transportation plan, the land use plan, and then UTA's park and ride facilities. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So well, actually, I'm sorry, can we go back 2 slides to that illustrative plan? Because that's probably the best way to, okay, so just describing the overall development, we have a very well-connected street network framing these individual development pads. You can see that this main boulevard that connects State Street right to the platform really serves as an access for the whole site to orient things to that platform. So that's very important. That's a structural component of TOD that really orients the whole development to the platform. So our, the proposed design is, I think, very, it's on point in that regard. And then along that boulevard are our most intense uses, right? We've got the multifamily and mixed use residential. Most of our retail is along that boulevard. And then it's flanked by 2 150,000 square foot office buildings. So you have this strong orientation with that street, and then the intensity of uses along that street to draw people to and from the station and throughout the site. And then surrounding that, you have kind of lesser intense uses. So you've got townhomes to the north, you've got some more mixed use multifamily residential to the south, and then you've got green spaces dispersed throughout the site. And so that's just a general description of the plan. And it should also be noted that right in the center here, you see a building labeled gym. What that is it's an anchor to this site. We've been working with a certain climbing club, and they've been actually part of this, part of the discussion all along with Clearfield and so forth. And what we're hoping is that they'll build a new facility at the center of this site. And this particular climbing club, they host many different public gathering opportunities and events and so forth. And so we see this as being an anchor to this site, and are very excited about that. So that's really the anchor right there in the center. And of course, it runs along that main boulevard as well. And then also, I guess we probably ought to mention that immediately adjacent to the platform and at the end of this boulevard is a proposed transit plaza, an additional gathering place for people who are accessing the site through the front runner or bus or through Uber, Lyft, any type of transportation can be easily accessed from this transit plaza. So, okay, so now let's go to the next slide. Oh, and then the next slide after this too. So again, looking now just focusing on the transportation infrastructure, we have these, we have a very, as close as possible, a grid pattern of streets. Is very connected in order to really optimize the mobility within the site, and then to connect it out to State Street and other peripheral streets, so that it really does add the necessary redundancy, for to make the ingress and egress to and from the site efficient, but also effective in times of emergency and so forth. So that's the basic layout of the streets. As we've already discussed, all of the main two axes, the Boulevard and then Depot Street, are both very much oriented to the platform, and both of those streets are considered multimodal streets. So there will be amenities for bicycles and other modes besides the automobile on these streets, making it convenient for first last mile connections and so forth. And then as far as transit critical infrastructure is concerned, we have the platform. We're leaving most of the bus loop as it is right now, but we're going to be adding a single bay or a single sawtooth to that bus loop. In addition to the transit plaza, which we just discussed, 2 pull-out areas on either side of the main boulevard, and then park and ride facilities in a variety of different places, but many of them will be structured within those 2 garages that you see. Okay, so now let's move on to the next slide, please. The land use plan really takes advantage of zoning that Clearfield had put in place prior to our developer ever walking into the picture. So what they've done, and I'm thrilled that they did this because it's made things very, not necessarily easy, but I think it has allowed the appropriate development to be programmed and planned here. They created an MU zone that requires a master development plan that augments the zoning ordinance of Clearfield, and really allows the city of Clearfield to collaborate with the development partner to determine what the design standards, or to determine what appropriate design standards ought to be in place, and determine other regulating factors. So this land use plan is the framework for how those standards are defined within the MDP. There are 7 different zones, including the 2 parking zones that you see there. The yellow zones that you see are mixed-use residential, and so you can anticipate predominantly residential uses. But if the market allows in the future, there may be some retail on the ground floor there. The buildings will certainly be designed to accommodate that. But then in the red, again, you can see the real intensity of the site occurs within these commercial zones, and then of course the blue zones are office, which are closest to the platform. So even through the land use plan, we can see that this plan really is orienting itself. It's anchoring itself to the public transportation infrastructure. And then also it should be noted that because of this framework, the course of the development, the phasing of the development will be responsive to the market, right? We want some flexibility so that as opportunities present themselves through the market, through demand, then we can respond to that in an agile way. And then I think it's already been mentioned, but each one of these areas is regulated by design standards in the MDP. So I'm sure that as you were going through the attachments, you saw pages upon pages of different design standards, each associated with these different land use zones or these different areas. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, please. And so that leads us into the design standards. You can see that, I mean, it's difficult to decide what to take out of the MDP and put on this slide because it's so detailed, but you can see that there's been a lot of attention paid to how certain facades of certain buildings are or relate to the streets and different design materials and so forth. And so I just wanted to point out that I mean, a lot of attention and a lot of care has been paid to the architectural standards within this development because they count, right? That like those are what create a sense of place, as was initially recommended in the stationary plan. Will be these architectural standards and how buildings are actually oriented within the site. Okay, so I think we can go on to the MDA now. Or no, I'm sorry. So, oh yeah, so we need to discuss the parking. We know that we know from our previous park and ride master plan that it's possible that approximately 700 stalls will be required at this site in the future. However, we would like to we would like to encourage and incentivize other ways of attracting people to this site and to the front runner other than the automobile. And so what we're doing is we're going to have a phased park and ride plan that really takes advantage of the existing facilities and then phases them out so that we can monitor demand as we're developing the site and really determine if 700 stalls is appropriate at the end of the day. If possible, we would like to reduce that because it would be less expensive. It would be less of a burden on UTA and the city, and the development, of course. And also, it would encourage people to use things like bicycles and TNCs and other UTA services to get to and from this site. So you can see here that in stage 1, we're going to be building 633 stalls, and we're going to be utilizing some of our existing park and ride, but we will also be building a small surface lot that's adjacent to the rail, 128 stalls there. In addition to those 2 surface parked areas, we'll be using on-street parking along Depot Street so that people can really quickly access the platform from those on-street stalls. As development continues and we have a second office here in stage 2, we'll shift the parking that was in that larger surface parking lot, the 359 stalls, up to the northern area of the site in in 2 additional surface parking lots that will be new. Once that second office building is built, we move to stage 3, where 100 stalls are now structured within this new this parking structure to the south of the site that also services the office buildings. But then we also maintain parking within these northern surface parking lots to achieve a potential count of 700 stalls. But really, like I said, we would like to try to get that down. We're going to build in the capacity or the possibility to park 700 patrons. But I think by this time we'll probably see that because of certain incentives and kind of working with the population of Clearfield, we'll be getting that down to more like we'll probably maintain 550 stalls. So on to the next slide, which will show the final park and ride condition. We have UTA has in the final condition, UTA has 100 structured parking stalls in the south. It has parking along Depot Street and auxiliary streets, and then also there will be some shared parking in a northern structure as well. Now I should note that the funding for that northern parking lot or the northern parking structure is undefined at this time. Within the MDA, it's stipulated that all involved parties will work to fund that and try to make that possible. But at this time, that northern parking structure is plan. It's in the plan only. Okay, so let's see. So are there any? I think we should pause here and really see if there are any questions about UTA's park and ride facilities, because I think that's an important point.
I know we've been briefed on it previously, but are there any questions? If not, let's keep moving forward.
Okay, great.
We want to be mindful of our guests and their hard stops. So.
Sure, yeah. And I'm trying to be as succinct as possible. There's just a lot of detail here. So we can move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so within the Master Development Agreement, we'll go over just the basic structure, the development program, how that development is sequenced over time and built, which public improvements will be included, and then, of course, the ownership and maintenance of the final product. So the next slide, please. Okay, so the basic structure, as we already talked about, the MU zone, which is in Clearfield's ordinance, requires the developer to create an MDA and an MDP, which when combined really augment the Clearfield City Ordinance and provide parameters for how individual phases of development can occur, right? So other things that are defined within the MDA that augment that zoning ordinance are the tax increment and bonding, other types of funding mechanisms and so forth, specific phasing, impact fees and reimbursements, and then ownership and maintenance. So again, I think it's been great that Clearfield did put this MU zoning in place, and we've really been able to, I think critically about the site and what's appropriate here because of this. And it's now in an MDA and an MDP, which augment the zoning ordinance. So next slide, please. Okay, so just going over the development program, as we've discussed, these two office buildings that flank either side of the boulevard will provide 300,000 square feet of Class A office space. As the market allows, we are looking at 2 additional offices directly adjacent to the rail, which would take us up to approximately 600,000 square feet of Class office space. So there's a range there, and it's certainly based on market demand, but we're thinking between 300 and 600,000 square feet of Class A office space. In the core there, as we talked about the commercial uses, we're looking at approximately 37 to 67,000 square feet of commercial retail. Much of that will consist of the gym that we talked about, that climbing club. It's a multi-story building, so that's really what defines the higher end of that range, and then up to 1,000 residential units in the different residential complexes. As far as infrastructural improvements, we've got a bus loop addition, so that single sawtooth that I mentioned earlier will be added. 2 drop-off areas along Depot Street, structured park and ride facilities, approximately 6.5 acres of private open space and 11.5 acres of public open space. And I just want to note that the 6.5 acres of private open space would consist of that center plaza that's adjacent to the gym, as well as UTA's transit plaza. And the 11.5 acres of public open space would be this much larger open space that's adjacent to the southern parking structure, and then this northern open space that is adjacent to Office C. And then, just like pocket parks here and there, there's a bioswale or this kind of detention basin that runs on the southern portion of the site there, as you can see as well. Okay, so next slide, please. The sequencing plan, I think the operative word here is flexibility. We certainly want to keep this development as flexible as possible so that we can respond to market forces. What we're proposing here would really be a huge addition to Clearfield City, and likely set a new bar for the market. So in order to do that, we really want the market to inform us of what's appropriate to build and when. Clearfield City has been really great to negotiate this and to really help us understand what the appropriate sequencing is. But basically, what we'll be doing in phase 1 is building all the infrastructure. So all of that, everything in orange will be built up front to create development pads. And then everything in green will be built as part of, will be phased out in the second part of the development, step 2. And what we've decided with Clearfield, what Clearfield really wants is for commercial uses, office, retail, etc., to be the catalyst for other development within the site. So they're really looking for either an office space or that anchor tenant that I was describing to be built prior to any residential uses. And so and then after that, it will be sort of a balanced succession of the various uses. So we'll build a residential use, then we'll go back to a commercial use, and then a residential use, et cetera, until the entire development has been completed. And then in step 3, which is kind of an undetermined time, we have this townhome village to the north, which consists of, well, as the name suggests, townhomes, lower density townhomes that are adjacent to the cemetery to the north of our site. So that's the basic sequencing. Certainly in the MDA, there's much more detail to it, but the gist of it is that it's this balanced succession that is set off with an initial development of a commercial nature. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide.
Jordan, are we nearly to the point? I just want to be respectful of our folks. We may need to have them speak. Are you close to being done?
I think this is the last.
Okay.
I think there are 2 more slides, so I'll just fly through these, and then Clearfield can say their part. But just the streets will be built up front. All transit critical components, so the plaza, the bus loop, drop off areas, and then the park and ride areas that we described earlier will all be built as public improvements. The wet utilities, dry utilities, and public open spaces. Well, I should say that the wet utilities and dry utilities will be built out as part of phase 1, and then public open spaces will be built as the city can fund them and so forth. Okay, so on to the next slide, which is maintenance and ownership. I think the important note here is that it's been decided that it'd probably be best if UTA retained ownership and maintenance responsibilities for the transit critical components that are directly adjacent to the platform. This is so that we can ensure that our conditions are optimized for our patrons going back and forth between the frontrunner platform and park and ride facilities and so forth. If it requires additional snow removal or extra care, we can respond to that as we see appropriate. And then, okay, so let's go on to the next slide just so that we can, so that Clearfield can have some time. So that's everything I had to say. We have Clearfield here and our development partners to answer questions and to say a few words.
Great,
So
thanks, Jordan. We'll certainly come back to questions, but we welcome Mayor Shepherd, and I understand your city manager is also here as well. So, Mayor.
Well, thanks, trustees. We're excited. We'll put that nicely. This has been a challenge of a project. We won't lie. It's been a long time coming. We've anytime you get a developer or development team together and say, okay, we want to balance out what the city wants with what a developer wants in regards to housing and commercial, and a balance between those two. That's always in and of itself a challenge. When you throw in a transit authority as well, whose focus is on ridership, which is not typically the development partner or the city's function. Now you're throwing a real challenge of how do we get a balance between those 3 types of entities in a commercial and a residential and a transit focused development, and come together in some sort of agreement. It's exciting to us that we did. We've got what will likely be upwards of 1,000 additional housing units. We've already got Clearfield Junction Apartments sitting out there with their portion of units, and we'll add up to 1,000. And the council looked at that originally as 800. We'd gone back to the council and said, look, we want to go denser. We would love this site to be as dense as it possibly can. And so as long as we can go vertical with those additional units, we'll take this up to 1,000 units. getting a council on board is a challenge. I've told staff that I should be paid by the speeches that I give and the sales pitches. And if I had with this site and all that we've gone through, I'd be very, very wealthy at this point. We are lucky to be able to partner with Stack and Hamilton, Arch Nexus and their design, and with UTA. I mean, we've been working on this site for 15 years. There are some things in this site that Jordan didn't mention. Well, I mean, he alluded to. We are bonding right up front to super pad this site out. We want this thing to be shovel ready. It is the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is the need for office space. As I speak to Sunset Ridge Development, who's handling Falcon Hill, they have an increased demand for office space, and there isn't in their development right now anywhere to build additional offices. We need this site to be shovel ready so that as those needs come up, those that are associated with Northrop Grumman and the new ground-based strategic deterrent program that is stationed at Hill Air Force Base or just outside of Hill, we need those businesses to be able to come to us and say we're ready, and to be able to have a site ready for them. And so we think that what we've come up with is a balanced approach to this development that will support what the city's looking for, what UTA is looking for, and what our development partners need. And probably the biggest thing with this, anytime you go up against a council, and I mean, we've had opposition all along the way. When we sat down roughly 3 weeks ago to take action on this, we went in expecting almost completely anticipating a 3-2 vote and barely eking this thing through. We have unanimous support from a city council on this project. That was it was exciting to us as a group to see a council get 100% behind this project. In fact, last night we're so confident in this project that last night we awarded the engineering contract to CRS to begin the engineering work on this project. Their time frame puts us doing horizontal work come this spring. So we're moving forward aggressively on this. Obviously, we're hoping that you'll approve this as well. So because it'd be a little embarrassing if we get down and we don't. So we certainly hope that is the case. That you're comfortable as we are with everything that has gone on with this site. We will be adding connectivity to this site. We'll be adding connectivity on Depot Street that will take us out to SR 193, a new intersection at State Street, and then another intersection at 1450 South that will lead out of the station and directly up to the hospital. This makes this a very, very flowing site and one that will serve our community well. We're very excited to see this move forward and are very thankful to everybody that has been involved in our weekly meetings to make this happen. So with that, I'll shut up and see if JJ has anything else to add.
JJ?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Chair Christensen. It has really been a pleasure to work with this team. I speak of the whole group on this project. It has been a long time coming. And kudos, board, to your staff and their diligence in working through the challenges that cropped up from time to time. When we get 3 different parties, as the mayor said, coming at a project like this with their own vision and desires and motivations, those don't always jive perfectly, and so from time to time there was a little bit of arm wrestling, but we always had a sense of teamwork and collaboration to work through those difficult moments. And so I'm really pleased with the outcome of that, and really grateful to Jordan, to Paul, to Tim, those from the UTA team that we were working with, and our development partners are top notch. So I'm just very excited. And like the mayor said, we're all in. We already awarded that engineering contract. So yeah, please don't make fools of us.
I will say we've certainly been kept up to date as negotiations have moved forward, and as discussions and designs have been fleshed out. So the work that Jordan presented today is not entirely new to us. So And so I think we're excited to see it come to this point as well. One question I had that will probably be asked and probably came up in your own council meetings, but of the 1,000 or so units residential, are there some affordable units in the mix? And I don't know, do we know that yet, or is that later on as part of the financing that could take place?
I can speak to that. There's currently not a plan for any of those units to be subsidized or made affordable. Frankly, right now, well, for many decades, much of Clearfield's housing stock, a really high percentage of it, is very affordable.
Okay.
And so, in a broader context for Clearfield City as a whole, what we're looking to do is diversify our housing stock. So where we're lacking, honestly, is some of that market rate housing that, frankly, we just don't currently have enough of.
Okay.
So that's where we're trying to seek some balance.
That's fair, and I am appreciative of that. I remember some neighborhoods during my tenure on the city council with kind of the same scenario. The neighborhoods are healthier when you do have a mix. But,
right.
Questions from the board? Beth, it looks like you have a comment or a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say how appreciative and how excited I am to see this come to fruition in this way. When I first started on this, and one of my first meetings, I think early part of December, just after I started here, I met with Mayor Shepherd and kind of learned a little bit of the history and what they were thinking and how to move forward. And I just think that this is going to be such a dynamic site. It has really good, solid developers who have worked in TOD before. It has a city who wants to really take advantage and really improve upon the infrastructure of their own city. And then, of course, they have access and adjacent to Falcon Hill, which is experiencing a tremendous amount of growth. And I sat in on a Weaver County Commission meeting yesterday, and Northrop Grumman is hiring 150 engineers a month. And that is something that is really going to have such a positive impact overall in the Clearfield area, because being adjacent to Falcon Hill, that is exactly what all of this type of a project is going to be helpful for. The way that the streets are flowing, the access points, the adjacent, connection to Front Runner, that I think is all going to really be such a positive impact for Clearfield. And I just want to say thank you, Mayor, and thank you, JJ, and your staff. Clearfield City has been incredible and amazing to work with, and they took all of these challenges and did what they think is going to be so valuable to their community, and I think they did an excellent job. And thanks to our staff too, Jordan and Paul, all of the work that they did to make sure that they were really maximizing the opportunities in this space. And I couldn't be more thrilled. And I had to laugh when the mayor said that he wished he had gotten a price for each speech. That's funny, because I think ultimately it's going to be so valuable when we look at this site in 10 years and just see all that the effort has done. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm excited to move it forward and help in any way that UTA can.
Jeff, I think you had a question as well.
Well, a comment. There is a lot of history here, Mayor Shepherd, and you've been a big part of that and trying to get a project to go forward. And it looks like you've finally gotten there. And, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, maybe this is the new Mecca place in Clearfield, and it's going to be a wonderful addition to your community. And I'm excited about that climbing group. I've had conversations with them on a different area, and they provide a very good gathering point for different events, not just for climbing, but for social events. And I'm hopeful that works out for you. So thank you for all your great work on this and the collaboration with UTA and the city and making things work. So thank you.
Let me just ask Paul or Jordan, were there any final things or?
Well, I just wanted to make note that so this was a discussion item today, but we'll be returning to the board at the next possible meeting to ask for formal approval of this plan. I think that's the final note.
Okay. And certainly the public's welcome to comment in the interim. I think, Mayor, you sense from us a general support, and I would anticipate that in January us being able to move forward, and but certainly want to be respectful of the process, and thank staff and on both sides, yours and the developers and our side, for getting us to this point in the project. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you guys. And thanks for allowing us to be this early on the agenda. I know that JJ had to get on the road today, so
yeah,
we do appreciate that.
Totally understandable. Thank you. Have a great holiday season. We'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul and Jordan, as well as Mary. Let's move forward to resolutions, and the first item up is a resolution ratifying the adoption of the final 2021 budget. And we welcome Bill Green. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Chair Christensen, Trustees Holbrook and Acherson. For the record, Bill Green. I'm here this morning seeking approval of the resolution adopting the 2021 budget. This process started over 6 months ago. There were multiple workshops and board meetings. We consulted with our local advisory council, and there were in-person and virtual public meetings allowing the public to give input to the process as well. The brief slideshow I have for you today focuses on what we're delivering. Next slide, please. On the operating side, we're going to maintain 91% of the pre-COVID levels, keeping our system safe and reliable by increasing personnel and resources. And just a reminder, there's $6 million in this budget to help us fund emerging needs as the region continues to react to and recover from the pandemic. Next slide, please. There's an emphasis in this budget. We've said this many times on our state of good repair, a critical element allowing us to maintain it. And the details of this slide show you that we're purchasing vehicles, preserving our infrastructure, and system upgrades and replacements. It's a very impressive state of good repair investment in the system. Next slide, please. Additionally, in the capital side, there's some major projects, BRT, the airport track station, and ongoing construction of the Depot District bus facility, and numerous technical upgrades, IT type upgrades. Next slide, please. This very small and complex slide was an attempt, and thank you very much to Alicia for giving me the framework, but I think I made it more complex than it needed to be. And you can look at it at your leisure. Basically, what we're trying to do is, you'll recall back in October during our workshops, we gave you a series of initiatives that we were going to focus on in 2021, and this casts them in the UTA way under the service, people, and stewardship goals. I won't read them, but I just wanted to summarize them for you and kind of cast them in that framework. Next slide, please. If you wouldn't mind, Chair, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank all those involved, the board, executive team, and all the staff involved, and a special thanks to Alicia Garrett, who got us to this point, and to my staff as well, Brad and Greg. So thanks very much for allowing me that. Any questions?
Very appropriate, Bill. Thank you. Any questions? I know we've had a number of opportunities as a board to chime in as this has come through the process, but Beth, you looks like you had a comment or a question.
I just had a comment. Thank you so much. Bill, you're new and you just jumped right in, and we are very much appreciative of all of your efforts, and staff, and Alicia, also new in this role, and really just compiling everything and making it very logical and thorough. So very much appreciate all of your efforts today. Well, and up to today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, any questions or comments?
Good to be aboard, and good to have you aboard as well. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Beth. And thanks for your commitment to keeping our system sound. I think as I look at this budget, knowing sort of the unknowns that still face us in 2021, this is a budget that allows us some flexibility, but yet gets us prepared for hopefully better times ahead. So thank you for having that vision and that courage.
Thank you.
I think with that, I would entertain a motion on the resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve R 2020-12-08, the resolution ratifying the adoption of the final 2021 budget.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Trustee Acerson,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Again, thanks to our team on this item. Well, that'll bring us forward to our next resolution item, which is approving and authorizing the execution of the authority's amended transit agency safety plan. And with that, we'll bring back Sheldon Shaw.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning again, trustees. Appreciate the opportunity. What I bring forward today for your consideration and comments is our 2021 version of our transit agency safety plan. Next slide. So 2020 was definitely a year where we learned the importance of health safety and having a safety plan with the pandemic, with the earthquake that we had back in March, and also the huge wind event we had. We were presented with some challenges, and hopefully 2021 is a better year and we can start off 2021 hopefully with an approved safety plan. Next slide. So we had very few changes actually from 2020 to 2021 in our transit agency safety plan. The process that we always follow is we have a red line version and we update throughout the year. We take inputs from staff and we review according to different rules and things that happen, and we ask for endorsements at the end of the year. Some of the things that do make changes in our plan are we have internal, external auditing, corrective action plans, close calls that happen in our system. We have rulemaking from oversight. We hold into OSHA, to Utah OSHA, the Federal Railroad Administration, Federal Transit Administration, state safety oversight here through UDOT. We have accident investigations and customer concerns that come in. All those are taken into account as we look to update our safety plan. The biggest update that we had for this last year was that under Carolyn's leadership, we adopted a confidential close call reporting program. It's been a huge success. We've had inputs from all of the service units. We've had confidential ones and ones where our employees gave their contact information for us to follow up with questions. And those have led to corrective action plans and these improvements throughout our system. Next slide. So under CFR Part 673, which is a rule from the FTA, that's what says we have to have a transit agency safety plan. And we were an early adopter. Our plan was approved this year under that rule. As of 2 days ago, the FTA gave an extension up through July 21st of 2021 to be compliant with the 673 rule. Not only were we compliant last year, we continue to be compliant, and UDOT's Procedures and Standards Manual has been updated to remove all references to 659 and moved on to 673. So both us and UDOT have always leaned forward in the straps with respect to safety and rulemaking. What you see here is a best practice from safety policy letter that was updated and signed by Carolyn. It lays out the responsibilities of all of us as employees of UTA to safety and to make sure that our system is as safe as it can be. This plan was reviewed and endorsed by all of our executives and our senior leaders. And I believe each of you have a copy that was a hard copy and an electronic copy to take a look at. You can see here the general requirements under the PTASC rule was that it has to be approved by our accountable executive, which is Carolyn, which she has done, and then also by the board of directors. And the big improvement we made for this last year, as you can see highlighted, was that we adopted the confidential close call reporting program, a more formalized way for our employees to come forward. Next slide. So with that, staff recommends that the board approve our 2021 version of our transit agency safety plan and affirm that our executive director is our accountable executive with respect to rulemaking from the FTA. And I just want to point out this picture right here was taken from the FTA's guidance on requirements for the PTAS rule, and UTA picture was included in that. It's interesting that they chose a commuter rail picture as opposed to a tracks picture. That's great to have the recognition. So with that, I'm standing by for any questions.
Well, first of all, the picture came because you're helping to set the trend in the nation there, Sheldon, so it's appropriate. I will also say that your hazard bingo thing, you could have had a blackout this year playing that game, so congratulations. And it does set a good tone. The other night when I went home, I saw a malfunctioning crossing that belonged to UP, and I thought about just going home, and I decided it created a hazard, and all your good reminders, and so we called it in, and our folks helped respond to make sure things were safe there. So it does need to happen at every level without question. So any questions, however, for Sheldon? Okay, well, if seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I move the motion to approve R 2020-12-09, resolution approving and authorizing the execution of the authority's amended transit agency safety plan.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth on the resolution. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Trustee Acerson,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again, Sheldon.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Well, next move to resolution R 2020-12-10, a resolution amending the third amendment to the Utah Transit Authority Retirement Plan and Trust Agreement. With that, we welcome Kim Muhleberry. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Chair and trustees. Thank you so much for looking at this resolution to adopt the amendment to the Retirement Plan and Trust Agreement. From time to time, we have to make adjustments to this document to reflect decisions and recommendations coming from the Pension Committee. In this particular this particular amendment, we're updating two sections to reflect some changes that needed to occur. Next slide, please. The first is just updating some language that clarifies that those employees who are opting to participate in the 401A defined contribution plan as their retirement program cannot also participate in the defined benefit pension plan. And that had been set via policy earlier a year ago, but we wanted to make sure that that was also reflected in the pension plan document, that exclusion was reflected to ensure that there was no confusion or misunderstanding. So that's the first update. The second update really just clarifies the applicable interest rate that we use when calculating lump sum distributions and purchases of service credits at retirement. And we were, our actuarial consultant earlier this year recommended that we reduce our projected interest rate from 7 to 6.75. It's just more reflective of what's happening with investments over time. And so we wanted to ensure that the interest rate that we use to calculate benefits is the same rate that we're using to project the entire costing of the pension plan liability. So this amendment here, this resolution, just codifies those two particular changes to the document. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Kim?
Just a general question. I would imagine that the actuarial consultants would typically take a look at that long range market investment strategy and do these types of interest rate adjustments potentially on an annual basis, or is it just as necessary?
We try not to change it each year, but we do keep a look at it for like a 3 to 5 year period and just see what's happening with our investments. We did make a change to this a few years ago and brought it down a 0.25% as well. So we do really want to make sure we're being responsible with that interest rate and using something that will help us more accurately project.
That makes sense. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kim? Seeing none, Kim, I'm assuming you're done on your presentation, right?
I am. I was just going to mention that we asked the board to adopt this resolution.
Okay, thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion on the resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve R 2020-12-10, the resolution adopting the third amendment to the Utah Transit Authority Retirement Plan and Trust Agreement.
I second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Acerson,
Aye.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate your efforts on that. With that, the next resolution is R 2020-12-11, a resolution authorizing the execution of modification number 2 to a federal aid grant agreement with the Utah Department of Transportation to provide funding for the Springville-Sharp-Tintic Railroad Connection project. And with that, we'll welcome, looks like Mary DiLoretto, and also it looks like Heather Bennings nearby as well.
Yes, thank you. You're going to get tired of me today, so I have other folks to help with presentations. So this is regarding the Sharp-Tintic Railroad Connection project. And if you recall, the federal funds for this project are coming through the Utah Department of Transportation. So we've entered into a federal aid agreement with UDOT for the project. We have had one modification to that agreement in the past, and this is going to be for that second modification for that agreement. If you recall, last month we amended our capital budget for this project to add $300,000 to do the design work for the project. So we now have to amend that FAA to add that $300,000. So I'm going to let Heather go through the presentation with you. There's lots of different numbers and lots of different phases of this. So just thought we'd put it all down and let you guys see and remind you of the agreement. So can I have the next slide, please? And then Heather, if you are there, if you could take over. Appreciate it.
All right, good morning. So as Mary mentioned, we have this federal aid agreement in place with UDOT for the Sharp-Tintic Railroad Connection project. So the initial agreement was executed in March 2019 with a budget of about $5.6 million. UTA, Springville, and Spanish Fork are contributing the local matching funds for the federal funding for the project. So that's in a separate cooperative agreement, which was also executed in March 2019. We have modified the FAA once to increase the project budget to about $6.3 million. And then we also did a second cooperative agreement to increase the funding. So that was the agreement between UTA, Springville, Spanish Fork, and UDOT. Next slide. So as Mary mentioned, this modification number 2 is to add the $300,000 in UTA local funding that was approved in November as part of the 2020 budget amendment. So the addition of the $300,000 will help initiate the design phase of the project. So the new project budget is about $6.6 million. 5.5 of that is federal funding, $390,000 is state funds, and then the local matching funds of $653,955 is comprised of $300,000 in the UTA local funds, which we're adding as this part of the modification number 2. We've already committed in-kind services of $117,985, and Springville and Spanish Fork are each contributing $117,985 to the project. And then there's just a little graphic here which shows the connection. What this project will be doing is the red line shown between the sharp and the Tintic line. So, any questions?
Heather, if somebody were sort of watching this for the first time, could you maybe in a paragraph just explain the purpose of the project?
Sure.
Or why do we want to do that connection, I guess, is maybe the question.
So the sharp line that you can see on the map, the black, which is going to be on the west side, UTA owns a portion of that and Union Pacific owns the other portion of it. So in the area that's further south by the sharp text where our connection is, we own the easterly portion of the right-of-way. For the Tintic, UTA owns the Tintic all the way down to, I believe, Payson. So if UTA's interest is that if we were to extend Front Runner south in the future, we would need to be able to connect from the portion of the sharp that we own, which we could use to come south from the Provo station that you see in purple, onto the Tintic line that we own all the way down to Payson. And the interest from Springville and Spanish Fork is that they have this Tintic line running through a lot of developable property and a lot of roadways that's causing additional backup because there's freight traffic on both the sharp and the Tintic, and you can see they kind of squeeze together in an area where if you're driving a car, you could get stuck at both crossings kind of right in a row. Also, UDOT has an interchange project down in Spanish Fork or Springville, which will, if we don't do this connection, they'll have to cross both the sharp and the Tintic. If we consolidate it, the north end of that red connection line will be two consolidated tracks that their project will have to address rather than the sharp and the Tintic kind of spread out separately.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Any questions, however, on what's been presented? Seeing none, I would, and I think you're done, right, with your presentation, Heather?
Yes, I believe that was the last slide.
Okay. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion on the resolution.
Chair, I would motion to approve the R 2020-12-11 resolution authorizing the execution of modification number 2 to a federal aid grant agreement with the Utah Department of Transportation to provide funding for the Springville Sharp Tintic Railroad Connection Project.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth on the resolution. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Holbrook.
Aye.
Trustee Aitchison.
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Heather, for that presentation and that helped. Our next item up is, let's see, make sure I'm in the right spot. A resolution, R 2020-12-12, a resolution authorizing the execution of an interlocal cooperation agreement, or ILA, with the Redevelopment Agency of Salt Lake City for the cooperative construction of a track station at 650 South Main Street. And with that, we'll turn back to Mary. Mary?
Hi again. So yes, this ILA is for the track station at 650 South Main Street for the construction of the station. If you recall, earlier this year, we had come to you with a contract for $300,000 for the design portion of the station that was funded through the RDA, and this likewise will be funded through the RDA for the construction of the project. I have Andrea Poulos joining me here. We thought this would be a good time to give you a little update on that project, as well as she'll give you more details on the agreement, the ILA. So Andrea, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Mr. Chair and trustees. If you can go to the next slide. Today, we're going to give you an update on the Main Street project and discuss those next steps to the project. In the late 90s, when the original track system was planned out, there was a plan for a station to be at this location at 650 South Main Street between 6th and 7th South in the future, and the tracks were laid out as planned for that. With that, they didn't want to build the station until ridership was in demand. If you'll go to the next slide, ridership in the next year will probably, I don't know how much it'll grow, but there are 3 developments coming into the area, and the first is slated to be opened in December of 2021. As Mary said, we had a design agreement in May of 2020 to do the design for this project. If you'll go to the next slide. With that, we hired CRSA in a competitive RFP process to do the design, and a notice to proceed was issued in August. Next slide. The intent of the 650 South project is that it will be very similar to the 9th South station that was built in 2005. It'll have the look and feel of the downtown, and as I said before, no track or OCS work will be required. Next slide. Currently, we have 30% plans for this project, and we are planning on finishing up the design in February of 2021, and we'll talk about the schedule in a minute. Today, we are asking you for a resolution for this construction agreement with Salt Lake City. The RDA is entering or has entered into agreements with 3 of these developers in the area, and they will actually pay for this station. The construction part of this is $1.9 million, and as we said, $300,000 was actually funded with the design agreement. So this is a professional service agreement for they will enter into professional service agreement with UTA for us to run the project. We will actually hire the consultant through our process, and we will be reimbursed for everything, including system integration and start up everything to open the station. And then it will be turned over to UTA for ongoing maintenance and operations of the station. Next slide. This is the schedule that's actually in the contract. It was lined out as part of this with the developer contributions. The developers have basically 60 days to put their money into an escrow account. And so we kind of worked back in time of opening this up by December of 2021. And so we will be putting this out to bid in late February of 2021 in order to meet this timeline. The latest that construction can start for this is July. Next slide. Finally, as part of this project, the Salt Lake City and Art Council and their Art and Transit program has selected an artist to do some art along the platform. This artist is Jean-Lee Lodge, and it went through a competitive process, and we narrowed it down to her design, which is some steel waves that actually show the people coming in and out of the Salt Lake Valley and in and out of this area. So that was the basis for her design. This is her mock-up of it, of what she plans to create. And we will be entering into an agreement with her to include this onto the platform. With that, if there's no other questions, we ask that you approve this resolution for the construction agreement with Salt Lake City RDA.
Well, I personally, I just want to thank folks for this effort. As a newly elected official in 1997, the north-south line was under construction, and when I was going through my orientation and sitting down with Alice Steiner, who was the director of the redevelopment agency, she pointed out that there would be a station there one day, and I said, "Oh, when will it be built?" And of course, it's always sooner than you think. And ironically, at one point, it was the site for our proposal for the Real Soccer Stadium, and that's a long story, but it didn't work out. And so to finally see it come to fruition, that neighborhood around there really is conducive to transit, and I think this site eventually will do quite well as a station. So it's exciting to see it go to this point. Any questions, however, for Andrea?
I just wanted to compliment you on this, and also kind of like when you take a look at that area around there, all of the residential that's going up and everything else. I really think that that's quite conducive to continuing to evolve that site. So I'm excited and looking forward to it. One question: the construction is supposed to be completed by the end of next year. According to the outline, is that when the building is going to be opening as well, or is that not quite the same timeline?
It actually is. They plan, one of them, I do believe it's the Petronelli, which is on 6 South and the west side of Main Street. They are actually planning on opening in December.
Oh, so that's perfect timing. Nice.
And the other ones really aren't that far behind right now, the other two. So
The other two. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for all that you did on this.
Other questions? I will also say it's actually a great model where development is also helping to pay for the construction and completion of the station. They certainly benefit with that. In a little bit in contrast to my usual pattern, I'm going to be so bold as to make a motion for approval of this resolution 2020-12-12.
I'll second that motion. We got a double second.
Couple seconds.
Chair Christensen have made a motion, seconded by Jeff. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Holbrook.
Aye.
Trustee Exercy.
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thanks, Andrea. Next up is I think that brings us into contracts, disbursements, and grants. And the first item up is a contract for our actuarial service, and we'll invite Kim Ulibarri back.
Thank you again. Yes, I am asking that the board approve this award and authorize the executive director to execute a contract on behalf of the pension committee with Milliman in the amount of $228,500 for services for the pension plan. As we mentioned in the previous presentation, we have an actuarial study done on our pension program each year, and to help us determine what our pension liability is, as well as how much we should be contributing to the plan each year to ensure that it's funded. Milliman has provided this service for UTA's pension plan since 2015. We did do a new solicitation for this contract, and we selected Milliman again through a competitive bid. We compared both technical scores and pricing for these services, and Milliman was the best firm from those that we looked at. So staff recommends that we award this contract to Milliman again. The contract is for 3 years with 2 additional 1-year options. And so the total value for 5 years is the $228,500. Of course, if we didn't award to Milliman, we would have to look for another vendor to provide these services for us. So with that, we ask the board to approve the award.
Chair, if I may be so bold, having sat through some of the presentations years ago with Milliman, they're a great group. They do a great service, and if I can be so bold, I would like to make that motion to approve the contract as presented in the meetings materials.
I'll second.
Say aye. Aye.
Aye. Carlton, we couldn't hear you for the first part of that, just so you know. You might want to repeat yourself.
Oh, I just said, if there were any discussions to the motion, and then seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Next item up is a contract for our financial advisor services, with Zions Public Finance. And with that, we welcome back Bill Green and Emily Diaz.
Good morning again, trustees. Before I hand it over to Emily Diaz, I want to thank the board staff for helping us get this important contract on today's very busy agenda. Emily?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, trustees. Thank you for having me. As you may be aware, UTA had a previous professional services contract with Zions Public Finance, which has expired on November 18th of this year. So on September 10th, UTA went out for an RFP encouraging interested parties to submit proposals to provide these services over the next 5 years. As a reminder, the financial advisor monitors the bond markets and provides professional guidance and support in issuing bonds and bond refundings for UTA. And after evaluation, UTA selected Zions Public Finance, who has actually provided these services for UTA since 1998. So today, we are recommending that the board approves the contract to authorize the executive director to execute the contract and associated disbursements with Zions Public Finance as UTA's financial advisor.
Emily, and certainly Zions has done a fine job and certainly were helpful during the transition, including a recent refinancing of some bond debt. But the length of time of their service, did the committee find both price or value, or how did they come to their conclusion?
Sorry, I meant to mention that. So I did do a cost analysis based on the last 5 years of service. And so the contract value was estimated at about $1 million. And that's just all based on any bond issuances or refundings that we would participate in the next 5 years.
But I guess in looking at competitors, you felt like it still had the best value for it.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Other questions, however, from the board?
Emily, I just wanted to ask you if you maybe could expand on some of the criteria that you reviewed that you felt that still put Zions in this space. That would be great.
So based on some of the evaluations, they've done all the services for us for however long. Unfortunately, they were actually the only bidders for this portion. So based on that, though, we reviewed the price criteria and their technical criteria, and based on all of the information that we were provided, the services were still valued. So we went forward with a decision.
Thank you for updating us on that. I appreciate it.
Other questions on this contract? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the contract.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the financial advisor services with Zions Public Finance as presented.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff, for approval of the contract. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Emily, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move to next contract, which is the Northern Utah County Double Track Project, long lead items, and this is with Stacy Whitbeck. And with that, we welcome back Mary Dilretto. Mary?
Yes, so this is for the Northern Utah County Double Track Project, which if you recall, it includes the Vineyard Station and the associated double track. The state legislature appropriated $4 million for the station, and UTA is funding the double tracking portion of the project. The contract for the construction work is with through UDOT. UDOT is contracting with Stacy Whitbeck to do the construction for both the station and the double track. One issue we have, though, as they are getting that contract worked out, there's some issues associated with wetland permitting and right-of-way, so they cannot sign that contract with Stacy until that's worked out. And there are some long lead items that we're worried about if they don't get ordered right away, that the contract schedule may be delayed. So we are going to, this contract for $774,938 is with Stacy Whitbeck to purchase those long lead items, which includes a track turnout and the signal systems. We know we will use this material whether or not Stacy is the one to construct the project. But since they have done all the legwork on getting all the bids for those materials, they already had all that information, and they will be the ones installing it, as provided the contract with UDOT goes forward. So we are asking for approval of a contract with them as a sole source, but they, as I said, they did get the bids for the work, and this way we can order those long lead items and have them ready in time for when the construction and installation is ready to occur.
Any questions for Mary on this item?
Mary, I had a question. How does that anticipate moving forward? I appreciate the ordering these long lead items. I think that makes it really valuable, but I'm just curious as to when the contractual agreements, when they're anticipated to be in place. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I believe early February, they expect to have the notice to proceed with UDOT with Stacy Whitbeck. So
thank you.
This gives us 2 months ahead to start ordering that material.
Other questions for Mary? Let's see, Jeff, I think you're on mute. Did you have a question, or were you making a motion?
Well, I think I've received the background on that and up to speed as Mary's explained it. And it's important that we go ahead and move forward on these long lead time items to just keep it on track in a timely way. So I'd be predisposed to make that motion to approve the contract of Northern Utah County Double Track Project, long lead items with Stacy Whitbeck.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Mary. Looks like you don't get away just yet. The next item up is a contract for utility relocation master agreement for Ogden Weber State University Bus Rapid Transit Project with CenturyLink.
Yes, so the next 2 items that we have are regarding the Ogden WSU BRT project, and Janelle Robertson is joining me as well if there's any questions that I can't answer. So this first one is for a master utility agreement with CenturyLink. They own many utilities along the project corridor, and this is for a not to exceed amount of $300,000. So there is no cost right now associated with the agreement. Instead, as we get to those utilities and we see which ones we have to relocate, we'll cost out each of those separately, like a task order. So we'll have separate agreements for each of those utility relocations, and then with a not to exceed amount of $300,000. If this is a requirement of FTA to get our Small Starts grant to show we have agreements with all our different utilities in place. So this is the reason this is coming forward as an agreement.
Any questions on this agreement?
And Mary, just a quick question. So when we do this, get this agreement in place with CenturyLink, do they have their analysis and then they give us which utilities? Is that how that works? They'll indicate which utility lines need to be moved?
I'm going to let Janelle answer that one. I believe it's as we identify it through the design, but I'm going to let Janelle take
Yeah,
that.
we have identified through the design what utilities we anticipate need to be relocated. What we don't know yet is the exact cost and how all of those utility agreements or all of those utilities are going to be relocated. So this kind of lists what we believe them to be, and then as we get to each one of them, we work out agreements on how those are to be executed.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the contract.
Mr. Chair, I'd love to make this motion. I'm excited to get this moving forward. I'd like to recommend approval of the utility relocation master agreement for Ogden WSU Bus Rapid Transit Project with CenturyLink.
I second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to the second one Mary mentioned, which is for the same project with utility work with Stacy Whitbeck. Mary?
Yes, so we have a contract with Stacy Whitbeck. Right now it's just for phase 1 pre-construction services, and we are ready to move into phase 2 construction services to do the early utility work for the project. The amount is for this change order would be $162,222. While it's below the $200,000 threshold, it is 15% or more of the current contract. So that's why we're bringing it here today. We do have pre-award authority for this work as part of the Small Starts program. So this is just to get them started on doing that early utility work to keep us on schedule.
Any questions for Mary?
Mary, is this going to be started once this is approved, or does this construction start next year? When does that timeline?
I believe it's going to start right away, but again, I'll let Janelle answer that question.
Yeah, immediately after the first of the year, they want to get started on this work. It has to do with the canal crossings on Weber State campus, and they have to do that work while there is no water in the canals. So they plan to get started on that right after the first of the year.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the contract.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the change order with the Ogden WSU Bus Rapid Transit Project, the early utility work with Stacy Whitbeck.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Looks like you're still here, Mary. The next one is an on-call maintenance change order item, number 1, task order of 130, front runner wayside power relocation, also with Stacy Whitbeck.
Yes, and I have Dane Cooley here, the project manager on this, if there's any additional questions that I can't answer. But we do have a task order 130 with Stacy Whitbeck to relocate the wayside power at the front runner station in Provo. And that is so we can, at the end, it's the end of the line, so as trains come in, they could just now plug into wayside power at the station and turn off the overhead and the engine, so it reduces consumption of fuel and it reduces air emissions, and it also reduces noise at that station. So we're very excited about getting this work done. The original task order was under $200,000. It was $187,000, so it had not come to you previously. But now, because of some changes to the FRA, Federal Railroad Administration requirements for when we could work there, there has to be more night work. And so that added to Stacy Whitbeck's cost because of the night work. And that bumped it over the change order of $38,466 bumps it over the $200,000 threshold. So we're bringing it here to you today for approval of that change order. Is there any questions on that project?
Any questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on the change order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion on the change order on-call maintenance change order number 1 to task order number 130, the Provo Frontrunner Wayside Power Relocation with Stacy Whitbeck.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Mary, next item up is also a change order for program management services with our contract change order with WSP.
Yes, WSP is our program management contractor, and they've been under contract since March 3rd of 2014, and each year we negotiate a cost for them for services for the year. Typically, by the end of the year, we have additional funds left over that we can use in the beginning of the subsequent year, but this year we're near the end of those funds, and so we want to make this change order to add enough funds to have them work through March 3rd of 2021. We do have, this contract is expiring, and so a new RFP is currently on the street to refill that service, to reserve that program management services contract. And so we are doing this modification now to get enough funds in there until that contract expires and the new contract is in place. And Gray Turner here, who is over that contract, is available to answer any questions as well that you might have.
Any questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. If there are none, I would entertain a motion on the change order.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the change order for the program management services contract change order with WSP to extend that contract to March of 2021.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff, to approve the change order. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Gray, for joining us. You look good there, by the way. Next item up is item K. This is a flex route deviation transportation services. Oh, thank you again, Mary, by the way, for on-demand accessible shared ride contract modification number 4 with Tooele County Health and Aging Services. With that, Eddie Cummings is here.
Good morning. This is a 1-year extension to the existing contract with the Tooele County Health and Aging Services for route deviation and dial-a-ride service in Tooele County. The 1-year extension amount is $734,358, bringing the total 5-year contract amount to $3,301,719. The base contract was for 2 years with 3 1-year extensions. Options 1 and 2 were exercised in 2019 and 2020. This extension exercises the last option in the contract and will be effective from January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. UTA has contracted route deviation and dial-a-ride service in Tooele County for many years. During this time, Tooele County Health and Agency Services has been the primary contractor and has proven to be a great partner. Tooele County Health and Agency Aging Services is familiar with UTA processes, policies, and expectations, and staff is confident they will continue to provide excellent service in Tooele County in the future. It's also important to note the original contract dates were incorrectly stated on the contract and previous modifications. This modification corrects those dates. Are there any questions on this contract?
Eddie, I have a question. This is Trustee Esterson. Have we seen that service increase in number of people that are taking advantage of that? Have we seen numbers grow over the contract periods?
So I have been out. I want to speak to that a little bit. Obviously, I will start it off by saying, with all of our services, we've seen a decrease in ridership, through the pandemic. But prior to that, it was doing really well. Ben, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so the dial-a-ride really came about because we had a flex route that was just very inefficient, and we ran an empty bus continually, but the area still needed some sort of transportation. So this dial-a-ride on-demand service came about, and it's been a better service to the community than the flex routes were, or that flex route was. So it's been a community.
Hey, Ben, how long was the on-demand accessible portion of that? How long has that been in place?
I can't remember. I would have to look and get that number, but we could get that to you. I would have to find out.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a feel for, obviously the flex route, as you indicated, was not efficient in this service, but we still needed it. I just wondered how that trajectory went. So thanks.
Yeah, I'll get that information to Eddie and he can pass it forward to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it seems to me, trustee, that it's been about 2 or 3 years that we've had that. But we'll get the exact date for the board.
Other questions on the change order? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll make that motion on the change order for the Flex Route Deviation Transportation Services and On-Demand Accessible Shared Ride Contract Modification 4 with Tooele County Health and Aging Services.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Beth on the change order. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. I'll just give staff a heads up. After our next item, we'll take a short break, but we'll first have discuss a change order for business analytics software subscription extension with information builders. And with that, we will welcome Dan Harmuth and David Snyder. Dan?
Good morning, Chairman and trustees. As you mentioned, I also have Dave Snyder, who's the manager of Enterprise Systems with me, as he has negotiated the original contract and each of the extensions to include this extension as well. And he's here to answer any questions I cannot answer. So this contract extension with Information Builders is for 2 additional years after the 2021 final year of the 2017 contract. So the extension will go through December 31st of 2023. The Information Builder system is what UTA uses for the business intelligence, data analytics, and the reporting portals that most of UTA uses on a daily basis. Currently, there are business intelligence portals for fares, maintenance, supply chain, customer feedback, onboard surveys, HR information like turnover. It's used for ridership information portals and various other business intelligence and analytic information. So this 2-year extension will lock in the 2017 subscription fees, which represents an estimated savings of about $20,000 per year, as this will preclude any typical 3% yearly increase in subscription fees. Also, as part of this, UTA reached out to Information Builders this summer and asked for any COVID-19 concessions due to our ridership numbers being down, and Information Builders agreed for 2021 to credit us $8,100 for our 2021 subscription fees. So we appreciate it, Information Builders giving us that concession. Thus, with the concessions and the 2-year extension locking in the 2017 subscription fees, we request and recommend approval of this 2-year contract extension with Information Builders. And I'm subject to any questions.
Yeah, and I did have one question for you, and it sounds like they're well integrated into our processes, and certainly the contract fees are favorable to us. Was the original sort of procurement or contract, did it foresee, I guess, this length of time? Because I'm thinking this is well beyond like 5 years and potentially gets into 7 years. And I just wondered what was part of the original procurement or contract window.
I'll answer a little bit and have Dave add on what I can't say, but typically a information or a business intelligence system
takes so much effort to build up to use it at the very beginning. Data has to be imported from all of our systems into a data warehouse, has to be cleansed, and has to be organized into these portals and reports and graphs and all these different types of drill downs, such that moving off of a business intelligence system is the major forklift. It's not something you're just going to switch into. If we did have to switch business intelligence systems, it would take us 2 to 3 years to switch once we decided to do it anyways. So Dave, I'll let you add on to what I haven't said.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, Mr. Chairman. The original 2014 contract was actually a software purchase, a software license purchase. But then in 2017, that was converted to a software subscription. And to follow on to what Dan says, we are basically subscribing to their service, and the cost of migrating and changing to basically get a different tool that would present similar information or information in the same way. It just is, there's not a lot of added value to do that unless there's some really great new tool coming out. But it would be a lot of work, a lot of expense, a lot of effort to effectively get into the same spot. And so that's why we just keep renewing the subscription. With their offer to hold that subscription rate to the 2017 rates, we just think it's a good value to proceed.
That's helpful. Thank you. Any questions, however, from the board? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this change order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the change order for the business analytics software subscription extension with Information Builders.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Why don't we take about a 10-minute break and plan to return here at about 10:37, and then we'll continue on with the rest of our meeting. Thanks. Hi, we welcome you back from our break and as we continue the meeting for the Board of Trustees for the Utah Transit Authority. Our next item up is a pre-procurement, and with that, we welcome Todd Mills. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and trustees. This morning we have 4 items that are ready to go out for bid. The first one is a procurement for the construction of a paint booth and mixing room at the Warm Springs facility. The contractor selected will purchase and install a paint booth as well as provide all the necessary facility changes and construction to accommodate the booth. The need for a paint booth at this location is essential to the state of good repair for the FrontRunner system. Funding for this project is included in the 2020 and 2021 budgets, and this will be procured as an RFP where technical criteria will be reviewed and scored in addition to price. I have Andrea Poulos on the call as well to answer any specific questions you might have.
Any questions on this item?
And it's just a comment. I am excited that we're going to be able to get this in place. I know that Stadler was in that space a while ago, and I know that this will be a valuable asset. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think we're good there. Should we go to the next one?
Yeah, I'll do the next one that Andrea is also involved in, and that's the Meadowbrook Bay expansion. So this is for construction of additional maintenance bays and canopies at the Meadowbrook business unit. The contractor selected will extend the existing building to create 7 additional bays and 1 row of bus canopies. The need for additional bays and canopies at this location is essential to the state of good repair for the bus fleet, as well as to accommodate the needs for an expanding fleet. Funding for this project is included in the 2020-21 budgets, and this will also be procured as an RFP, where technical criteria will be reviewed and scored in addition to price. And again, I have Andrea to answer any specific questions for that.
The only question I had for Andrea maybe was whether or not in the sort of plan or master plan, is this sort of the last expansion possible at Meadowbrook, or would there be other future opportunities if we should want to add more there, or would we look to other facilities probably?
I think the answer is that for the maintenance bay itself, this is the last area. It'll make it a triple bay so that we would have to drive buses through one of the outside bays into the middle, which works really well for some of those long-term projects that we have. At this particular site, there is no area to add additional bays other than the 7 we are planning. We are also looking at doing some canopies if we do have enough funds when the bids come in, but any additional would have to be at a different site. It looks like, I know Hal Johnson is working on some plans, and there's some other plans going on out there, but as a general rule for the bay expansion itself, this is as far as it can go.
Okay, great. That's helpful. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, should we go to the next one, Todd?
Yeah, the next one is a sole source procurement with Railplan International to upgrade our bike rack system on all 16 FrontRunner bike cars. The project was originally initiated to better meet our customers' needs, but became more urgent when the Federal Railroad Administration determined our current design is not compliant with FRA regulations. Railplan is currently the only company that can provide the needed configuration that has FRA approval. This project will upgrade the 16 Bombardier bike cars to allow more bike capacity on trains, improve ease of use for our customers, ensure secure attachment for safety, and meet all FRA requirements. The current design only accommodates 9 bikes, but the new configuration will accommodate 14 bikes. Funding for this project is provided by local funds and an approved federal grant. I have Bruce Carden and Thomas Gilmore on as well to answer any specific questions.
The only question I have maybe for Bruce is, how many bikes do you get on a commuter full train? I know that's always the challenge, and does 14 get you to where you need to be, or is it just improve the circumstance? Maybe, is Bruce there?
Hi, this is Thomas Gilmore, and it will currently get us closer to where we need to be and have options as we see different commuters come. We'll be able to expand that to a second car if needed.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Last one, Todd?
Yep. The last one's a procurement to contract with a firm to provide on-demand innovative mobility services. The primary goal of this RFP is to procure an experienced contractor with capabilities of providing new and emerging on-demand technologies and services which support UTA microtransit, paratransit, fixed route, or van pool services throughout the UTA service using transportation as a service, software as a service, and mobility as a service solutions. In order to support UTA strategic goals, objectives, and the 5-year service plan, UTA needs to procure a contractor capable of planning, designing, operating, and providing on-demand services and other innovative technologies. This contract will be advertised as an RFP where technical criteria will be evaluated and scored in addition to price. And I have Jaron Robertson on the line as well to answer specific questions you might have.
The one question I had, maybe for Jaron, is do we anticipate one provider being able to provide all 3 of those areas, or is it possible that you might get more than one bidder for a particular aspect of the service?
Yes, good morning, trustees. I would anticipate we get several bidders on this contract, however, or this RFP, I should say. However, you know, as an agency, I think we have to consider the fact that one provider is going to provide a more unified transportation experience to our customers if they're using the same service across multiple service areas. So ideally, we are looking for one vendor who can provide all these different services to make it a better customer experience.
Okay. Any questions for Jaron on this procurement? Okay.
I apologize. I didn't hit my mute quickly enough. Jaron, I just wondered, structurally, when do you anticipate getting that RFP out and then being able to start implementing that?
So ideally, we looked to release this RFP at the first of the year. It's a pretty complicated RFP, so I think it'll take us, we want to give all of the bidders ample time to put together a solid proposal, and then going through that selection process will probably take, we'd anticipate maybe sometime between March and April to award and then work through the contracting aspect of that. For implementation, obviously, this is all, what this really provides us is more like an on-call contract, so that as an agency, when we make a decision to implement service is aligned with our 5-year service plan, that we have that capability to then develop a scope of work agreement with our vendor and then deploy a service as we've strategically planned as an agency. So this really gives us the flexibility over the next several years, once we've procured a vendor, to launch and implement service as we determine, and having that vendor in place to be on standby and ready to stand up service.
Thanks. That's really helpful, and it sounds like it would really dovetail nicely. I know the service plan people are trying to look to take 2021 to kind of really look at those different areas. So basically, what I'm kind of hearing you say is that that's going to kind of align timing wise, et cetera, with what they're trying to accomplish. So nice work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that procurement? Okay. I think that with that's it probably, Todd, right?
Yeah, that's all for today.
All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Good work. I'm sure we're keeping you busy up to the end of the year. So.
The end of the year crunch right now, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for you and your staff doing all that work. That brings us to item number, I think the letter's K on my agenda, which is contract or grant application for the Ogden Weaver State Bus Rapid Transit Depot Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure with Rocky Mountain Power. Mary, welcome back.
No.
This is the Mary hour, right?
It is. Alma Haskell, one of our grant administrators, is also here to help me get through this. We have 3 grant application process, 3 grant apps that we're going to talk about today. The first one is with Rocky Mountain Power, and I believe there's a presentation, if you could. Yeah, so Rocky Mountain Power has funds available for custom projects for eligible renewable energy technologies. And we have submitted a grant application for funding for chargers, for 5 depot chargers that would be installed at the Mount Ogden bus facility. And each charger has 3 ports, so it would provide 15 charger ports, and that this would all be part of the Ogden BRT project, where we are planning on having electric buses. We are already planning to do this work, so this would just help fund the cost for some of that work. The grant funds could be used for both equipment and installation cost. We estimate a total cost of $1.45 million for those 5 depot charges, and the grant request is $750,000. And as I explained, that would be paid for through the Ogden BRT project. It's already in that budget. Any questions on that?
Any questions? Sounds like a good opportunity for us.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Power has been a great partner to us, so we appreciate this opportunity. Then I don't know if you want to just move to the next.
Yeah, why don't we go to the next one?
Okay, next slide then. Okay, it looks like maybe they have these broken down, but so Wasatch Front Regional Council opens up their grant application process every year. Right now, there's 3 types of grants, and we're just giving you all the acronyms right up front, and then you'll see them on the next few slides as well. But the 3 types are the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, more commonly referred to as CMAQ, and they're programming right now for 2027 for the CMAQ grants. There's also the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, STBG. Those are also being programmed for the year 2027. And then the Transportation Alternatives Program, TAP funds, are being programmed for 2023. So we submit both for the Ogden-Layton area as well as for the Salt Lake West Valley area. And I'm going to let Alma talk about in more detail about the different applications that we have submitted. They were due on December 10th, so they have been submitted, but he's going to talk about each of the different sets that we have submitted. So Alma, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, trustees. And just to note, STBG is the new name for STP, Surface Transportation Program funds, as they used to be called, and as most people still call them. The first in the Ogden-Layton area is the Salt Lake Davis Community Connector. We're seeking funds for design on that project, and as that project crosses boundaries into the Salt Lake West Valley urbanized area, we'll be requesting funds in both of those areas, as you'll see on the next slide too. The park and ride lot in Box Elder, that's for a 90-stall park and ride lot with a couple of bus bays as well. It's there just west of that Walmart on the highway that goes up through Brigham City and up on towards Logan. And it's a great central area. There's a lot of people using informal park and ride lots at the businesses there. So this will provide them a single and more secure space for them to meet. And the bus stop improvements in the Ogden-Layton area, that's requesting funding to supplement the money that we program year to year. It's following the bus stop master plan as to which stops we improve. The application that we turned in ended up focusing on routes along on bus stops along routes 640 and 645, which are mainly on 2nd Street in Monroe and also on 36th Street in the Ogden-Layton areas. Any questions on those before we move on to the Salt Lake West Valley area?
Mine is maybe a general question, and that is, can you, these are 2027 funds. Can we expend them and then turn to reimbursement in 2027 or whenever they get finally programmed?
Yes, great question. We can do that if we have agreement with WFRC and with the federal agencies, which is very possible and likely to do, and we've done in the past. Also, theirs is a fairly large program at WFRC, so sometimes they have bandwidth to bring some projects earlier than 2027 if we're ready to go. And there have been other projects that have been pushed back. There's occasionally opportunity to bring that earlier.
Beth, you look like you had a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. I just had a question in terms of when we do the bus stop improvements. I know we have a master bus stop plan, how often is that plan updated? And I know that there's probably some continuity throughout the entire, throughout even 10 years worth, but I'm just curious, like in areas where we have new bus stops or whatever, how does that integrate, and how often is that updated?
I think it's continually updated, if I'm not mistaken. That would be more of a question for the planning department and the bus service planners who run that plan and who gave me the data on which stops to apply for. Mary, I don't know if you have any more input on how often that's updated.
I think they just came up with their big plan about 2 years ago, and as we change routes, they would obviously update them as needed. But I don't think there's a plan to. I don't think there's a set schedule, I guess. I think they would just update it as needed.
Thank you.
Right. Why don't we go to the next slide, and you were going to go through, I think, other applications.
Sure, for the Salt Lake West Valley area, those are listed on the next slide. And this as well, again, the Davis Salt Lake Community Connector looking for design funds. And yes, that would probably be one that we would need to bring earlier than 2027. So we'll work with WFRC to do that or to be reimbursed. Likewise, with the Point of the Mountain study, we've requested funding to complete the environmental study of that transportation corridor, requesting $3 million in funds to put together with the legislative and all of the other funds people have committed to that project.
Can I just interject in there? Sorry, Alma. I just wanted to point out on the board memo, we had said that we were requesting 2.5 million, but the actual request is 3 million. So I apologize for that error on the board memo, but this presentation has the correct amount. So thank you.
That was 3 million on which item though, Mary?
The Point of the Mountain, sorry.
Point of the Mountain. No, okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for that, Mary. The board memo was developed before the applications were finalized and turned in. And as we develop those applications, we may have done a little bit of fine tuning. So there might be other applications that are slightly different, but the numbers here are very close to what was submitted. So that's one that we increased from the 2.5 to the 3. For the on-route electric bus charging infrastructure, we've been funded for 1 year of that last year already in this urbanized area and also in the Ogden-Layton area. They gave us some funding to put on-route chargers on the Ogden BRT. We're asking for some more funding for 2 additional chargers in the Salt Lake area to give us more flexibility with the buses we'll be getting from the VW settlement funds. The 2 additional that we're asking this year would likely be at the West Valley City Center Bus Hub and a second charger at the 39th South and Wasatch Park and Ride lot, where we have a lot of routes that could use the electric buses going through there. The bus stop improvements for this area, for the Salt Lake West Valley area, are focused on routes 209 and 205. That's on 9th East and 5th East in Salt Lake and through Mill Creek and down into South Salt Lake and past those areas. Front runner double tracking is a segment from South Jordan to Draper, which is one of the key segments in the Salt Lake County area to move us towards the future of front runner initiative and plan that's going on. And then the last project in the Salt Lake West Valley area is for a study of a rail corridor along 400 West from the 13th South track station, providing another light rail line or connection into the downtown Salt Lake area on the west side of downtown that speed connections to the airport and provide relief to a congested light rail corridor with all of our routes currently coming through one spot.
Any questions on any of these? Okay. Let's see. Do we have one more, or are we there?
I think that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
as I mentioned, these have been submitted. And Alma, when do they give us the answers? When do they select?
I am not sure on the Rocky Mountain Power. I think it's going to be fairly quickly on that one for the depot chargers up in Ogden. On the Wasatch Front Regional Council applications, it'll be through the springtime that the initial committees make their recommendations, and then summertime when the Wasatch Front Regional Council makes their final approvals and everything gets put into the tip and has that final public comment period. And it was finalized in the October approval of the tip, even though the recommendations, we'll know what we're going to get funded for early or in the springtime.
Right. Well, thank you, and thanks for your efforts on that. We'll cross our fingers on them. So great. Well, I think that takes us now to our service and fair approval section. And the first item up under item 9 is A is a fair agreement EcoTrip rewards custom fair agreement extension with Intermountain Healthcare. And with that, we welcome Monica Morton. Good morning, Monica. Monica, there you
Hello,
are.
good morning.
Good morning.
Today I'm seeking approval for an amendment. Good morning.
Morning.
Amendment with Intermountain Healthcare Services, and this extends their contract another year to helping people stay healthy, and one way they can accomplish this is through public transit. The contract is each authorized year. They're billed those trips less a 17.5% discount, and for 2021, $177 on the decrease from the pandemic. So with your approval, we'll move forward with this amendment.
I know your thing broke up a little bit, Monica, but it sounded like we've made some accommodations as we have with other large providers for pandemic relief due to volume, but continues on a discount for Intermountain Healthcare, and that information is certainly available in our packet. Bill, is there anything else that you think we need to worry about?
No, I think, let me just jump in a little bit. The estimated revenue for the contract year 2021 is between $195,000 and $277,000. And as you said, Mr. Chair, there was some accommodations made.
Okay. Questions, however, from the board?
No questions. I just wanted to say thanks, and you addressed, I couldn't hear Monica at all, so thank you.
Yeah, it sounded like she had a bad connection, and we've all experienced that. Joy? With that, I would entertain a motion on this fair agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the fair agreement EcoTrip Rewards Custom Fair Agreement extension with Intermountain Healthcare.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Bill. Maybe you're going to stick around for the next item up, which is EcoTrip Rewards Custom Fair Agreement extension with Select Health.
Sure. Monica, why don't I just give it a shot here? The second amendment this morning is for Select Health, which is very similar to the agreement you just approved for Intermountain Healthcare. The estimated revenue for contract year 2021 for this agreement is approximately $5,900. With your approval, we'll extend this contract another year.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this fair agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion on the fair agreement, EcoTrip Rewards Custom Fair Agreement extension with Select Health.
I have a motion from
Second.
Jeff, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. That brings us next to our discussion items, and the first one up is a Customer Service Department 2020 report. And with that, we welcome Nicole Bardot and Cindy Medford. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, trustees. Good morning, Chair. We're here today to give the 2020 annual report on customer service. I'm here with Cindy Medford, who is our customer service manager. Before Cindy begins, I just wanted to bring up two items of note. Last year, when we presented the annual report, we talked about the citation and adjudication process, and we're not going to be presenting on that today. However, we are going to be working with Monica, who had just presented, our affairs director, also with our police chief, Ross. And we plan to come back in June to talk about that policy and give some recommendations to you all as we just dive in a little bit further about that policy and some recommendations. Also, one that I'm really excited about is you're going to hear Cindy present on our extended hours for customer service. And I just wanted to bring this up a little bit because Cindy and her staff did a great evaluation on how what our current and future needs are for customer service and the team. You're going to hear there's 45 employees, a little over 45 employees, and what our needs are. And so they were able to repurpose staff and able to reduce the budget this year, but also provide a better service to our customer. So I just wanted to bring that up. She won't pat herself on the back, but I will, and I wanted to commend her because it's great for us to be able to offer 7 days a week and extend those hours to 9 p.m. Back to kind of what we've done. And I think it was back in 2007 was the last time we were able to offer that to our customers. And as we've seen time change in COVID, our services and people riding our services changed. And so I just wanted to bring that item of note. So I'm going to turn the time over to Cindy now, and she's going to just highlight some of the items that are in the full report in your packet. So Cindy, if you'd like to go, and next slide, please.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. Thanks, Nicole, and hello, trustees. My name is Cindy Medford. I'm the manager of customer services, and I'm only calling in. You don't get to see my face today because the volume on my computer is not very good, so I wanted to make sure you could hear me clearly. As Nicole said, we do have 45 employees who work at several locations throughout our service district, and we have 6 areas of responsibility that we manage here in customer services. Next slide, please. The contact center is the information and support department for our new customers. They do trip planning. They help our customers use our system, pay their fare. We get a lot of regular customers, but we also have a lot of new customers who will call in, or visitors to Utah prefer to call in. Calls through, this information, by the way, is mostly through October 2020, and so far the calls are 153,661 calls into the call center. That is a 20% decrease over the past year's averages, and this is due to the decrease in ridership due to COVID. Customers on hold time is 10 seconds before speaking to an agent, so customers do not have to wait very long before they can reach an agent on average. So with the reduction, like Nicole said, with the reduction in our calls, this meant we did not need as many employees answering phone calls as we have in the past. And we did lose a few through attrition, through normal attrition, but then we also extended our hours of service to provide more support for our customers. So we're now open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 8:30 to 5 on Sunday. We will continue to watch the trends. One of the cool things with call centers is I can see when customers try to call us after hours. So I will watch those numbers, and as the demand increases, we'll increase our hours to meet those demands. Next slide, please. So our items recovery team, every year UTA processes around 23,000 lost items. Unfortunately, we only get about 19% back to the owner. We would love to get 100%, but we have to identify who the owners are or have the owners call us. And we get everything you can possibly imagine, and some things you probably have never thought of. All items are entered into a tracking database, and we do make all attempts to locate the owner looking for phone numbers, mailing addresses, work ID, school ID, whatever we can find to try and identify who the owner of the item is, and we can call them or email them or mail a letter to them, depending on the information we have. There are some updates to the lost and found policy in 2020, and we are extending our hold time from 30 to 90 days for all items that have an estimated value of $250 and higher, and all electronic items. So as part of that, we will also be adding video coverage for 90 days over our storage areas so that we can keep the items secure while they're in our possession. And UTA employees are not allowed to keep any item they're found. They are required to turn them in to the Lost and Found Department for tracking and trending. At the end of the holding period, any unclaimed items are either donated or discarded. It depends on what they are. For example, we do usually donate a lot of coats and hats and gloves to the homeless shelter. Next slide. This is our customer relations team. These agents, customer relations, work in the customer service centers throughout our service district. They sell fare media. They help educate customers on our service. They process reduced fare applications, and then they also help with the lost and found. This is where the lost and found is also stored. I want to give you a quick lost and found story that came from one of our supervisors. Late on a Friday afternoon several months ago, a customer rushed into our lost and found office, hoping we had an item that belonged to him. He had accidentally left a flute in an old, well-worn black case on the bus or a train a few days before. A customer relations specialist checked the lost and found database program and then walked into the back room where we keep our storage. Then she walked back up to the window with the case in hand. The customer was so overjoyed that he literally burst into tears and dropped to his knees. He was so overcome with emotion. He picked up the case and then hugged it to his chest. It was obvious this lost item was very precious to him. He told us it was everything. He thanked God, UTA, and all those involved for finding it and keeping it safe for him. And then he took the flute out and played us a few measures in the office to show his appreciation. And that story just tells you that no matter what the item is and how old it may be or ratty or unimportant it might look to some people, it is very important to the customer who owns it. So that's really fulfilling for us in customer service to see that. Next slide, please. Our customer focus team are the teams that receive feedback from the public, and we take both phone calls and emails to get feedback. A comment is considered a customer's experience, their observation, or their opinion about our services. We normally receive around 32,000 comments every year, and then these comments would be entered into a database called TransTrack that allows us to address individual comments throughout the process from start to end. And then that data is exported into UTA's reporting program called Information Builders, which was talked about earlier today by extending the contract for that. The nice thing about that database is it does allow the people who are making decisions to slice and dice and compare complaints and comments to the fleet, to the bus stop, to locations, and be able to see where we can find some trends for improvement. Year to date through October 20th, the comments we've received so far are 17,826. This is a 39% decrease over 2019. The average time to answer a phone call is 23 seconds. So on average, a customer is only on hold 23 seconds before they can reach an agent. And for processing customer feedback, we have a policy, a company policy of 7 days, and our current average handle time for the company is 5 days from start to finish. Next slide, please. This graph will show you how customers reach out to UTA to give us feedback. As you can see, we have phone calls, emails, walk-ins where they walk into a customer service office face-to-face, social media, and we still receive written letters. You can also see the trending over the past 3 years, with this year being, of course, lower due to the reduction in ridership due to COVID. Next slide, please. What you're looking at now is the graph of our top 5 comments through October 2020, and this is based on the customer's experience. The boarding and alighting comments are issues customers have while getting off and on a UTA vehicle, like not allowing a customer to board at an end of line or being asked to board at the back doors during this time of COVID. Customer pass by. This is where a customer states they were at a bus stop and the bus did not stop to pick them up. Cleaning and repair can be anything from graffiti at a station to a garbage that needs to be emptied. It can also refer to a ticket vending machine not working. Commendations have always been in the top 3 at UTA. I've been here for 28 years, and commendations have always been in our top 3 feedback areas for commendation for feedback. And we just have a lot of employees who do a really good job and give our customers a great positive experience. Poor customer interactions also happen, and this could be anything from the tone that the employee used with the customer to being told that they need to wear a mask or have to board at the back door. These would be where they feel the interaction could have been handled differently. So we have a, did I already say the percentage decrease? We are at 39% decrease compared to previous comments from past years due to ridership. Next slide, please. So our social media team, I share this responsibility with Andrea Packer, and my team, they're the ones that actually talk to the customers. So we're the ones that have the back and forth communication. And our newest communication plan we have is service alert. And this has been put in place to improve timely communication to the public using multiple channels to meet the customer needs. And this is through Twitter, the transit app, and GovDelivery. This real-time communication is outgoing, and it does let them know about detours and delays and other impacts in a very timely manner. Our new program allows us to send notifications via email and or text per the customer's preference. Customers select the routes and services that they want to be notified about, and then we can update them even for short term, like a water line break where something's just on detour for a couple of hours. UTA also has a general newsletter and a COVID update, and that and blogs, and those are handled by Andrea Packer's team. Next slide, please. So here you see a picture of our whole department. Not everybody's in this picture. It's hard to get us all together, and you'll notice we're not wearing masks, but this is an older picture. So the UTA guiding principles really match very closely with customer service's mission and our purpose: helping others, showing respect, proactively solving customers' problems, continuously improving our work, and understanding how we impact our customers. That's who we are in customer service. It takes a whole team to provide support for these employees. In our department, we support them from technical issues to helping take care of an extremely upset customer and making sure that the employee feels supported and understand how important their job is to UTA and to the customer. And we need to remember that these employees don't work for me or for us. We work for them. We're there to support them, to help them have a positive experience while they're helping the customers. Next slide, please. So there's a commendation on this particular slide. I'm not going to read it to you. I believe there's also some additional comments that you could review if you want to. One thing I want to talk about is what we've learned. So as we know, 2020 has definitely been a year of new and challenging experiences. But one of the things we have done is we have learned how to get a call center working with agents at home. It's allowed us to learn how to hold meetings over virtual programs and the different programs out there. It's taught us how to keep employees engaged and help them feel supported while they're not in the office. So while it has been a challenging year, it has also taught us a lot and helped us improve our skills with customers and with our employees. Next slide. Any questions?
Cindy, thank you for the presentation and for your team's adaptability to undoubted changing things. It's exciting to see that expanded service window. And the question I had on the sort of remote agent work and people's ability to do some from home, do you see some of that sort of residual, as things improve? I mean, is there a value there with maybe senior or experienced customer service agents that maybe live even elsewhere in the state, if you will, but want to continue working for UTA?
So there's definitely work from home opportunities in the future. We had one in the past and had a lot of challenges. So this has allowed us to test some new technology and see how it's working. And some of the advantages it's offered is some of these different events we've had have had us lose power here in the main office. But we have home agents who are working, so calls are still being answered, even though the few agents that are in the office can't answer the phones right now. So calls are continuing to be answered. If we have an event where we are needing people to jump on quickly, it's easy to call an employee who's working from home and say, can you start a little earlier, without having to worry about how they're going to get to the office. For example, the day of the windstorm or the day of the earthquake, allowing them to get into the office and work is difficult. So there are lots of advantages. The employees are really loving working at home. The quality has actually been really good. The number of people who are calling in sick and absences is down. So the only challenge I think we really have is making sure they still feel engaged and part of a team. It's important to us in customer service. And that's probably our biggest challenge.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Questions from the board? Beth, it looked like you might have one.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of like comment on the thought process behind your support of your customer service team. I really admired how you structured that and being there to support them so that they can support our riders. I think that even more so than pre-COVID, I think that is really valuable. I think it touches on what you were talking about in terms of making sure that they feel part of the team and engaged and really had this value from UTA's perspective. So I wanted to commend you on that. I feel that customer service is one of the most valuable areas in an array of valuable areas, simply because we're making sure that last connectivity piece is addressed. And so I wanted to commend you on incorporating the UTA way and all of those other elements. That was nicely done, and I appreciate it, Cindy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? Okay, Nicole, are you good as well? Okay.
We just thank you and let us know if you need any more information, and you're always welcome to come put some headphones on with us down there. Cindy keeps us busy, so once COVID's over, you can come.
That sounds great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that presentation. Our next item up is a fraud risk assessment that was required of every public agency in the state, and we've asked our internal audit director, Ron Ellis, to come and give that overview. I will just say, depending on the length of things, I may have to bow out a few minutes early. I have a 11:30 commitment I need to be in. And in that case, I'll ask Beth Holbrook if she would chair the remainder of the meeting. So with that, Ron, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Christensen and trustees. I can do this in 8 minutes. So Jana, if you could go to the next slide, please. So the fraud risk checklist is published by the State Auditor's Office. It's based on the COSO 2013 framework. Now, what COSO stands for is the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadwear Commission. It's a private sector initiative jointly sponsored and funded by professional organizations such as the AICPA, the American Institute of CPAs, Financial Executives Institute, and the Institute of Internal Auditors. The 2013 framework, the COSO Internal Control Framework, is considered really the gold standard. It's recognized, it's the only framework recognized by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, as well as the state of Utah for public agencies, along with some GAO frameworks for the public agencies. But it really is the gold standard and the one that the state of Utah directs public agencies to follow. So that's a little background on the checklist. 2020 will be the first year that we are required to actually submit the checklist to the state auditor's office, which is due within 180 days of the end of our fiscal year. The reason it's on the agenda now is it must be presented to the governing body prior to the end of the fiscal year, and it must be certified by myself and the chief financial officer, which we have done. And then the scores are based, the scores are based on various categories relating to financial and internal control over financial matters. The scoring, if you can go to the next slide, please. The scoring is based on categories, and the scores are awarded, or the maximum points are based on the importance to the internal control structure of the category. So basic segregation of duties, you can see on the screen in front of you, there were very few categories where we did not score the maximum. I think written policies was the only area where we had a little bit of opportunity, which I'll talk about in a few slides. And then also continuing financial education, just with the turnover in the CFO position, as well as the COVID situation, there haven't been as many opportunities for the professional staff to get the continuing education that they need or are required to get. And then, of course, you can see the other categories there. Note that segregation of duties is probably the highest scored thing. And what that really means is the people in charge of receiving money, accounting for the money, and dispersing the money are different entities. Sometimes an application control through the computer system or through logical access can achieve the segregation of duties. And then the final thing I want to say is in completing the checklist, in each category, we gathered and evaluated documentation supporting our responses for each checklist item. For example, direct observation of the audit committee and board meetings, looking at the board bylaws and charters, education and credential evidence, resumes of financial staff, and policies appertaining to any given item. We then evaluated policies by mapping these things to the requirements in the checklist in the category. So I feel very good about the job that we did. Next slide, please. And then here's just like a few more categories. You'll note these are all things that you can find in the COSO internal control structure. A lot of governance controls, for example, having an ethics hotline, having an internal audit function, and having a formal audit committee. And then again, going back to segregation of duties. The UTA scored 384 out of 395 possible. And you might say, what does that mean? Next slide, please. So we scored very low. Greater than 355 is considered to be in the low risk category. I might also say we stress tested the score and looked at a scenario where instead of awarding a few points for where we had a policy in place, but there were a couple of points that weren't covered, we looked at it and said, all right, what if we awarded no points for this category? How will we score? We still score 355 and higher. So we would still be very comfortably in the low risk category, regardless of the subjective evaluation of the scoring. So, and that is really it. And then probably wondering where we're looking for where we have opportunities, and on the next slide we can look at that. We deducted 5 points related to no single active member of the management team obtaining 40 hours of continuing education in financial and accounting related topics. 4 points were deducted because the cash receipting and deposit policy has been drafted but is not yet adopted and implemented. And 2 points were deducted because the travel policy currently in place does not address a few of the points described on the fraud risk checklist. A revised travel policy is in draft form, and that should address the points that are missing if and when adopted. And that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Ron, thanks so much for that. Jeff, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good. It's very well, it's thorough. I had a chance to review it before, and you know, I think it's important that we do due diligence to make sure that we're in a very safe place, knowing that even as safe as you are, there's still opportunities. And so everything we can do to minimize that is very helpful. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And Ron, thank you for reviewing all of this. I think that this is helpful information, especially structuring it so that we understand some of the things that still need to be addressed, and getting those, as you indicate, you know, some of those are in draft form now to improve that score for next year. So I appreciate that. And yeah, with that, I don't have anything else as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess I'll call you Chairwoman Holbrook. Temporary Chairwoman.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the hardest one, but yet the most exciting, I think, at this point. Our other business, our next meeting is January 13th, 2021 at 9 a.m. So yeah, we can officially say we're almost out of 2020. That's definitely a value add, I think. Thank you to everybody who helped organize and run this meeting. We appreciate it. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, see you next year. Take care, everyone, and we appreciate your joining us today.